Kate Varah, thank you so much for coming to talk to me today. Not only a friend, but a super high power business lady. And we thought it would be really interesting to have your take on midlife, menopause, and what it's like to be in a position like that you hold, whilst also being a woman in this stage of life. So for people that don't know you, do you mind just explaining kind of what you do and how you got there, so we can get a bit more of a context?
Yes, and thank you for having me. It's a real treat. So I suppose I wear two hats in my life. I have a work hat and a home hat. I'm a mum of 3 boys and 2 dogs and a cat. Reluctantly a cat owner, but actually it's going quite well.
That's another story.
It's a whole other story. And then at work, I am the co-chief exec and executive director of the National Theatre, which for those that aren't sort of familiar, I suppose, with the theatre world, it's the leading theatre in the country. We were set up by an Act of Parliament in 1960s, and it's this big brutalist building on the South Bank, which serves audiences of about 1 million a year live. But actually the kind of joy for me is that we reach about 19 million people around the world with our digital work and our touring work. So it's a sort of really rangy demographic of people that we hit. And the best bit, I think, about the job is that we go into schools and we work with the next generation. So it's really vibrant, really different. And the role sits separately to the artistic side of things, perhaps. So I have an artistic director that I partner with really closely, and she and I work together. And I look after the sort of the business and the people and the strategy and make sure that it's there to serve the public.
Wow. And what's it like being a woman in a role like that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I was thinking about this because this is the first time that the National Theatre has been run by 2 women in its history.
I did wonder that, but I didn't want to.
No, we've had our 60th birthday last year, and I was put in post a couple of years ago, partnering with an amazing man called Rufus Norris. But my new partner, Indu Rubasingham, and she's the artistic side, I'm the executive side, as I mentioned. And there's never been before 2 women doing those roles. The sort of irony is that we're inheriting a landscape from a business and a sort of audience perspective that's quite difficult. It's probably never been harder to run a theatre. And so suddenly this generation of women are coming in and taking the reins of these big organisations and these big jobs in an incredibly challenging climate. So it's an amazing thing to be doing. I'm really proud that it's the 2 of us doing it, but it doesn't come without its complexity.
And do you think you are treated differently because you are a kind of female double act, say, in comparison to if it had been 2 men who'd taken over at the same time?
I think there's different responses in different rooms. So I think there's a group of people that are profoundly glad and feel really seen and represented by the fact of us as a team, and so that's a really positive and affirming thing. There are other rooms where it's less usual, and so you do have to work a bit harder to prove your mettle and establish yourself. And then I think actually from a public perspective, they don't really know who's leading the organisation. I think there is a lot that we have achieved as women in the workplace over the last 20 years in particular, and the women that went before us have really done an extraordinary job. But there's still work to do, I think. And
I suppose there is the biology thrown in, like,
right.
As a woman, you are the one that has children. You are the woman that goes through menopause. I mean, it's just there's no escaping that. It is just simply kind of how it is.
So you're sort of trying to manage that alongside the biology of the menopause. Absolutely. I think I sort of hit that job, as probably a lot of women do, in my late 40s, when there's a maelstrom of things at home. Your kids are just, for those that are fortunate to have a family, if they want one, you're kind of getting to that teenage point when, again, the fallacy of, it'll get a bit easier when they're teenagers. I mean, good luck if it does. But for me, it's got, exponentially more complicated and emotionally charged. And so you're sort of hitting these really big jobs at a point when your kids need you perhaps more than most, and often your parents or, sort of family around you are getting older or need a bit more support. So your sort of caring responsibilities are increased. You've got this big new challenge at work. And I'm sort of conscious that I'm hitting it at a point when I am a bit more anxious and a bit less confident, which is possibly, you will advise me, a menopause thing. And so I think I'm definitely sense checking myself a lot more. I spend a lot more time analysing things than I ever used to do in retrospect.
Work things or life things or both?
Life,
or...
but I think work is most of my life. Yeah. So there's not masses of downtime running a big theatre with shows on every night and lots of evening events. So it tends to be my sort of work life does occupy my life. So for the most part, yes, I think I find it a more reflective exercise perhaps than I ever had before. And maybe you're going to tell me that is normal, part of the course.
Well, it is. I mean, anxiety particularly, and a loss of self-confidence, and a kind of, who am I? Am I me in the same way that I was kind of 5 years ago? I think those are all definite kind of menopause symptoms.
So back to your point about how do you get through it all, the most heartening and reassuring thing is I've definitely found over the last couple of years a group of women who are work colleagues who are in exactly the same position as me and are brilliantly funny and empowering and chaotically like their world is like my world. So when we're going off to a big investment summit with government, to bump into someone that you've really admired in the industry that you've wanted to meet, like I did the other day, and I was sort of really impressed to meet her and thought, God, you're amazing, and you sort of have that slight deference of, I'm just going to listen and learn and absorb. Part of the sort of anxiety thing, or maybe it's just the sort of the overachiever in me, but you're used to, as you grow up, being able to work harder and achieve something. You can sort of, you set yourself at goals, and you can mostly, if you really with luck and preparation, you can get there. And I think the thing that I've definitely found as I go through what I'm learning about the perimenopause, Naomi, is that sometimes you feel like you're flying without your cape. Like that's the thing that's really sort of got to me in the last couple of years. Hang on, I know how to do this, and I used to be able to do this, and this without breaking stride. Like I could nuke this, and then suddenly just feeling like I literally don't have the oxygen or the kind of accelerator on the not very good at cars. The thing.
I know, yeah. The floor button thing.
The floor button thing. That I think has been a really interesting shift. And sort of figuring out, is that menopause or is that me? Is it just me and I can't cope with this thing, or is it actually an external factor or a biological factor that I'm sort of out of control of? And I think that you kind of said learning who you are in all of this, and there's definitely a big thing in that for me. It's like, is this me? Am I just sort of not able to go at it like I used to? Or
do you think you can't go at it like you used to? Or do you think it's just so many extra things that you've got to capacity that you would have got to at any point?
Yeah, I think maybe I'm filling my life with more things because there is more responsibility. But I think
the number of pets in your house increases.
I mean, the pets is insane. We had to have a 1 in 1 out policy for no one was. But there was a tortoise for a short time who was, to be honest, lucky for him, rehomed. But I think Sheldon. Exactly. But Sheldon aside, I think possibly it's just that I'm not sure that I can't do all these things. It's just that it's taking me longer, or I'm having to break more, or I'm having to sort of take stock more than I would have done. And it could be an age thing, it could be a complexity thing, but I've definitely noticed the sometimes feeling that cape isn't there, which is frustrating when you're doing something that is, in my case, like the kind of pinnacle, I suppose, of the jobs that I'm going to do.
I think it's impossible to know. It's just impossible. Yeah. It's impossible to know whether it's life, whether it's menopause, whether it's like capacity. Like I don't know whether as you go through life, whether your brain does actually get to a kind of capacity where it doesn't continue to just take on and take on and take on. Do you put things in place to kind of help with the cape not working as well?
It's a good question. I think we could all do with a bit more investing in ourselves, probably. And I've been thinking a lot about how to do that.
Do you feel like menopause particularly has made any sort of impact on work or also on life?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I would have really understood to be the menopause, because I didn't know much about it, which we laugh about, because it's not something that I was part of my lexicon. Like, I was not actually very good at science at school, so I barely scraped anything in biology. And so I really didn't know very much about it. And the first time I sort of noticed that there was something going on that was out of the ordinary was incredibly bad night sweats, where I would just, literally 5 times a night, have to get up, change the sheets, I'd be sort of turning the duvet over in the night and putting towels down and changing and I just remember thinking, this isn't normal. Hang on, I think there's this thing called the menopause, and maybe this is something to do with it. And so, of course, if you're not sleeping, that does impact pretty much everything in your life, and particularly because, my life involves, 6 hours sleep at best each night. So if they're not good 6 hours, that's quite problematic, and they really weren't. So I'd say that was the biggest sort of like klaxon sound for me, that something was different. And
what did you do about it?
Well, obviously just thought, get on with it for a while. And then got to a point where I just thought, no, this can't be how I'm going to live for however long this is going to take. So I did go and see my doctor about it. She gave me I can't remember what she gave me. I think almost nothing that was useful. Which is then when I came to see you, and one of your amazing team recommended the Oestrogen, which is, for those not familiar, it's not perfume. You rub it on here, and that just fixed it within about 2 weeks. And that was a sort of amazing thing. I thought, why have I been struggling with this for at least a year, possibly more, not sleeping, really just thinking this was something I'm just going to have to deal with. And literally within 2 weeks, it was almost perfect. There will be a couple of times a month now where I still need to sort of, do the rigmarole. But actually, that intervention, it was revolutionary. That's why you're amazing.
It's just, that's how easy it can be. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it is harder. So some women will not have such quick relief from such a symptom like that, but it is, for a lot of women, it can make all the difference. And if you're up all night and losing sleep and feeling awful the next day, and then you just do that one thing, and it can be transformational. So do you feel well on it, or do you feel like there's, we've never had this conversation before.
No, we haven't actually. I do. I think it, I've now moved to the patches. So just for variety, which I'm finding is better consistency, because I've actually wasn't, you'll be unsurprised to hear, very religious at waiting for it to dry and putting, so I think the patch is good for a busy woman. And I think it's not only helped my night sweats, it's also stopped me wanting to divorce my husband, which is always helpful, because I'm just a bit more measured and calm in the house.
Women's brains are designed to have estrogen, and so I think it's when you lose it in menopause, it just shifts the brain chemistry. So it allows kind of behaviors that you just wouldn't have been. It changes. It can change you, and it can turn you into somebody that you almost don't recognize and don't want to be. So having that estrogen replacement, it's kind of, I don't think it's masking anything. I don't think it's not just kind of just kind of dumbing down anything. It's literally just kind of replacing, putting your brain chemistry back to where it was, to making it kind of Kate with estrogen rather than Kate without estrogen. We are just a bunch of hormones. We are a bunch of chemicals. If you take your serotonin away, you'll be different. If you take your dopamine away, you'll be different. So and if you replace it, you're also different. So it's...
And how does it work with the estrogen and progesterone? Because that's something that we've talked about before, which is the sort of, you've got to get the right levels. What is the right cocktail, I suppose, or is it really specific to each individual?
Well, there's kind of general rules that are then tailored to each individual. So the amount of estrogen that somebody needs will totally depend on an infinite number of things. Progesterone's a bit different because we primarily give progesterone for the protection of the lining of the womb. So you either have that in the form of a Mirena, or you take a capsule called Utrogestan, or you can take it orally in combined oral HRT. There's lots of different ways of taking it, but primarily we give it to prevent the estrogen from causing the lining of the womb to over thicken. Some women take progesterone for a kind of calming effect, but that's not what we use it for primarily.
Yeah.
And then testosterone is the kind of third hormone as part of HRT, and it's more complex in the sense that the guidance for its use at the moment, because we lack a lot of data, is that if you have somebody who is on HRT and they are adequately estrogen replaced and they continue to have a distressingly low libido, and a proven low testosterone, you would then consider testosterone replacement. But
Yeah.
it's a female hormone, and it declines throughout your adult life. But it doesn't just kind of fall off a cliff at menopause like estrogen does.
What's so interesting about that is that you can get mischaracterized as a hormone. You know, if you think about the way in which people talk about testosterone versus estrogen, and sort of, if you look, I was thinking about this in preparation for this conversation, but if you look at the kind of role of women in literature or in culture and film or telly or plays throughout the years, the characterization of women, be they, you know, a damsel in distress, or, you know, overconfident and overbearing and too strong and, you know, brawny and, you know, testosterone and all of those other things, you know, you can, there's not much nuance in there, or you know, interest or reality, frankly. There's just this really stark version of what a woman is or could be or is perceived to be, which is partly, I think, back to the conversation we're having about how you're perceived as a woman in the workplace or anywhere, informing the public's perception, informing the press's perception of who you are. Because if they've only seen women in one way, through the books they've read, through the telly they've watched, through the plays they've seen, through the, you know, films, whatever it is, they're only going to have one view of you. And so that what you're doing to sort of open up the conversations about what actually does this mean, what does it look like when you are angry or upset or anxious? That doesn't mean that you are deficient in some way or that women aren't able to cope. It's actually a really practical, really scientific phenomena.
Before you leave, you are not allowed to go and do a just in case wee, because there is no way that you can possibly need to wee again.
So this is the thing that Naomi and I debate. In fact, I think about Naomi when I go to the loo, which is a really...
I'm very honoured.
You're proud of that.
Yeah.
So we have this debate about just in case wees, because Naomi's absolutely right. Well, tell me the science of it, because is it a menopause thing? Is it just the fact that I drink too much peppermint tea? But there is this anxiety for me around getting in a car and knowing that I'm not going to be able to go to the loo for an hour, or going into a meeting and thinking, I've got an hour and I can't have a loo break. Is it an age thing? Is it a menopause thing? Do I just need to get a grip?
It's lots of things. So if you literally drink tea all day, then you will be consuming lots of litres of fluid, which your kidneys will filter, and you will need to excrete as urine. I mean, there is a fundamental kind of in-out physics of it that you can't debate. But it depends whether you are going just in case. So whether you need to go a bit and you go just in case, what that will do is it shrinks your bladder, and it makes your bladder. It means that the receptors that tell you that you need a wee will be triggered when your bladder volume is much smaller. And so next time you go, and next time you go, and next time you go, your brain will be told you need to go when actually you don't, and your bladder has got much more of a capacity to hold to hold urine. And so you end up in this vicious cycle of, oh, I'll have a just in case week. So you go, but you produce less. But the next time you need to go, you only produce less. And it just ends up in a spiral like that. So it's really important that if you do really need to go, you must go.
Yeah.
But if you don't need to go, you shouldn't.
Channel the camel. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Noted. I will try, Naomi.
Yeah, it's so with men, so estrogen affects all of the urinary system, so urethra and bladder and the muscles and fibers that support it, and you can get definitely get bladder instability. You get more likely to get urinary tract infections. So menopause does bring with it urinary frequency, getting up in the night, latchkey urgency. So you get
getting up in the night for that, definitely.
Key in the door, suddenly desperate, run to the toilet, drop your bags, drop your shoe, just kind of got to get there. And replacing estrogen. So locally you can use vaginal creams and pessaries and things that will help. But also there is a behavioural element in some cases. Possibly in yours.
So it's part menopause, part peppermint tea, part get a
behavioural.
grip. Yeah. I'll really try.
And it does work. If you stretch it out, it does work. You just have to train your bladder to go back to its original capacity.
So you can reshrink or re-toughen your bladder.
Yeah, so it's the receptor. So your bladder, if you think of it like that, at the moment, the receptors in your bladder wall are telling you need a wee when it's stretched to this level. But actually, it can stretch to that, and that's the point that it should be telling your brain that you need a wee. So if you drink 10 gallons of peppermint tea and your bladder's like that, it's totally appropriate that you go for a wee. But it's not appropriate. It's not when it's that size.
Okay. I will never stop thinking of you when I go to the loo, I promise.
If you're enjoying this conversation so far, please do press the follow button on whatever platform you're listening on. If you'd like some more information, then please visit our content hub at menopausecare.co.uk. Please do share it with a friend who you think would benefit too. So, Kate, one of the reasons why I made this podcast is so that we can connect with some of the community and help by answering questions. Are you happy to help me answer a couple of questions?
Yes, very happy as the definite sous chef in this.
So the first, I disagree. So the first lady, Fiona, says, I've always had a busy job and thrived from it, but my menopause symptoms have been getting worse. Hot flushes, memory loss, exhaustion, and it's all becoming too much at work. To be honest, I could do with some time off work. Is menopause a valid reason to ask for a break from work? I can't help but feel like I'm making a fuss about nothing. Now, I would say you're much more expert to answer this than me.
Really hear you on that. And actually, we didn't talk earlier about the memory fog, which I've totally had. And lots of colleagues have that, where you're just searching for a word, a reference, a phrase, and you can't get there. So I'm really sympathetic. And I think we've all had those sort of doubts for ourselves, like, should I be doing this now? Is it responsible? Should I be taking a break? I mean, there's two things. One is a more sort of pastoral thing. Another is perhaps a legal answer. My pastoral answer would be, have you tried taking a shorter period of time when you just actually say, I just need a week, or just do something completely for yourself and try and reboot? Because sometimes the overwhelm gets to a point where you can't even see the wood for the trees, and actually you're probably amazing at your job. And
she cares, doesn't she? That's just
exactly,
she's caring.
Because it's just because you're caring about it. So actually, just giving yourself that permission, I think, to think about you, but don't give up something that you're probably really good at. Just take a break, potentially. The legal side is, and we definitely need to speak to someone more qualified than me on this, but there is legislation, I'm pretty sure, coming in about the menopause, which you will be aware of as well, which suggests that it could become a protected characteristic of some sort. So there are things that legislators are thinking about when it relates to the menopause, which is partly due to your work lobbying about it and raising awareness. So I think we should all watch this space, because definitely workplace norms are at the moment not really encompassing menopause, but I think we're moving into a world where they will consider it.
Yeah, things are definitely changing, aren't they? And I hear from a massive spectrum of experience. So some women find that their workplace is really very supportive, and they have menopause mentors, they have menopause like workplace policies. I don't know if you've got a menopause.
We do.
And workplace adaptations. And then you also hear from women who experience the opposite, where they feel like if they even admit to struggling with symptoms, like it's a target on their back, and they're pretty much saying, my brain isn't functioning, I can't do the job that I'm supposed to be doing, and they feel like if they admit to that their job would be at risk. Thank you so much, Kate. You are I think you're amazing, but you really are amazing. Wonder Woman.
Ah.
That cape is firmly on, I think.
Well, only because of you. And no, seriously, it's an extraordinary thing you're doing, and more women need to feel empowered and confident, and they will do if they are understanding of the fact that it isn't about a deficiency in them, and that actually this is about a rebalancing and a rebooting and a resetting, and actually it's all to play for. But what you're doing, I salute you, my friend.
Thank you.